What's up, gamers? My name's Scyushi, and today we're going to be talking about my list of the best games of 2019. I've seen lots of other people doing lists like this, and I think that it is something interesting that we can explore together. But the one thing that I find very strange about most content creators is they seem to just be making a list of the games that they played and enjoyed the most in 2019, rather than games that exclusively released in 2019. Now, I can kind of understand that, because in all honesty, 2019 kind of sucks. There was only a handful of games that even made it onto my list, let alone only a handful of games that even released this year in general. I mean, the fact that so many people have rated Sekiro as their top game of the year means that this was probably a pretty pathetic year, because I fucking hated that game. Now, the crazy thing is that in 2020, we've got so many games coming out, guys. Like, even just in March alone, we've got Doom Eternal, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Animal Crossing. So much shit is coming out, not limited to those games. We've got Minecraft Dungeons, Cyberpunk, Marvel's Avengers MMO game, The Last of Us Part 2. There's so many things that are coming out, even Ori and the sequel to Ori, Dragon Ball Z, Kakarot. There's so much stuff coming out next year. It is actually over the top insane. We did still have some pretty decent games come out in 2019. You know, we had Resident Evil 2 earlier this year, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order more recently, Sekiro, and then we had The Outer Worlds, which was okay. It wasn't bad. Death Stranding finally came out and sucked the big one. Then there was also Borderlands 3 for any fans of Borderlands. Nobody talks about Metro Exodus. Nobody talks about Apex Legends anymore. Gears 5 came out. Kingdom Hearts 3 finally came out and flopped. Mortal Kombat 11 as well, which was cool, but not really something I was into. Devil May Cry 5, Luigi's Mansion 3, even Untitled Goose Game. So many games did come out this year, but none of them, to me in particular, stand out above the rest, outside of a very, very select few. So even though Anthem was actually, it says the initial release date was December 8th of 2019, I'm pretty sure that that was like the beta, if I recall, and then the game itself ended up releasing, maybe was it March of 2019 or something? But either way, I wanted to mention Anthem just because we can kind of use this as an example of a completely failed project. It had everything going for it. Giant mechs, you know, RPG elements, dungeons, raids, and everything like that. Everyone was really hyped about this game, myself included, but then when it ended up coming out, it just didn't really meet anyone's expectations, and in the worst way possible, was kind of boring. Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, fantastic Metroidvania game. Loved playing through this one. It actually also had a very big like reception when the game first came out about how bad and bland the graphics were, and then they ended up kind of redoing the entire game from, well, graphically from scratch to make things like way better and way more way higher quality. And that's something that can not be said about most companies, is where they'll actually accept and take the criticism and just make the game even better. That said, the only thing that anyone really complained about was the graphics. I just generally liked it because it really reminded me of Castlevania Symphony of the Night, which kind of adopted the whole Metroidvania type of game, and it was a lot of fun playing through this one. You know, I loved the fact that there was so many different weapon types that you could mess around with, and everything seemed kind of viable, where even if you ended up having a shitty build, you could still end up making it work. Dauntless apparently came out in 2019. I wonder which release they're actually talking about, but that is another game that I would highly recommend because it's absolutely free and it's kind of a more casual Monster Hunter. So Monster Hunter World, though a fantastic game, is very daunting, if you'll excuse the pun, in terms of its different mechanics and the amount of items that you have to grind and everything like that. Truly, it is the superior game if you're into, like, if you really want to dive into an RPG where you're literally hunting gigantic monsters. Monster Hunter World is where it's at. Dauntless is a very approachable, casual alternative, and I really enjoyed my time with it. I enjoyed doing the Let's Play series of it, and it was just such a fun experience. I love the fact that the game kind of looks like Fortnite, just because that's my favorite style of graphics, where it's very colorful and a little bit cartoonish. The only thing that I absolutely hate about this game is as soon as you get to like the top tier monsters, and I'm not saying that I was like at the end or anything, but I mean, there's different tiers of monsters and they all start out really fun up until you get to Rift Stalker, and anything beyond that, the monsters just become tedious and boring as all hell to fight. And you gotta grind them over and over again in order to end up getting better gear, that I just couldn't be bothered. Like I fought Rift Stalker, I think 2 or 3 times, tried some of the other monsters within that higher category, and it was just so much more boring than the rest of the game up to that point that I just absolutely stopped playing it. Now, even though I'm not the biggest fan of Mario Maker, we do gotta have it on the list just because Mario Maker 2 basically just destroys any other Mario game out there. Like the fact that this is all about custom levels and essentially is infinite Mario content is awesome. You gotta scrounge through like a whole pile of recycled garbage shit levels, and if you end up searching for the most popular, you're usually just going to end up finding some dumbass music track or something. But when you're just randomly checking out levels, sometimes you'll end up finding that perfect level where it's a really, really good experience. And on top of that, they finally released the damn update where you can actually play the game online with your friends instead of just with randoms. Not to mention they ended up adding the Zelda DLC for free, which was actually really, really cool. There's not that many levels that I've played with it because unfortunately Nintendo sucks ass at having different tags. So you can't just search for Zelda levels specifically. You have to just find them based on like their titles and stuff like that, which sucks. Like I really wish that the search function was a lot better in Mario Maker 2, and I think that that would make the game even more approachable and even bigger of a title than it already is. Luigi's Mansion 3 is awesome. I've been having a great time playing it with Mariko, even though we're literally going to take 2 years to finish that game. Sekiro. Fuck this game. Seriously, I hate this game. It's made it onto the top list of everyone's game of the year, and I don't know why. Is there something wrong with me? And I know that the Sekiro community is a bunch of try-hard losers where they're gonna say, "Oh, get good." I played through Sekiro twice. I beat it, okay? The first time, debatable, because I ended up getting to the Ghost Monk boss, and then I used like a speed hack mod to beat the game, and then unfortunately, I had to play through the entire game up to the Ghost Monk again just so that I could end up beating the final boss, because everyone was yelling at me about like, "Oh, you're just not good at the game," and everything like that. I hated Sekiro. I absolutely hated it. I've played through it enough to let you guys know that it is just not my thing. Apparently, it's everybody else's thing, with it being game of the year on everyone's list. But for me, I prefer Dark Souls. I like the more reactive combat rather than what Sekiro is, where Sekiro to me just felt like everything that you did was weak. Like I felt like Sekiro himself, the main character, was not badass in the slightest. He was the weakest, stupidest piece of shit I've ever experienced in a video game. Everybody that you fight in that game is stronger than you. And on top of that, the combat itself I didn't find as entertaining. Like with Dark Souls, I like the idea that there's the RPG aspect of it. There's so many different weapon types in Dark Souls 3, and on top of that, the fact that there's the RPG elements means that if you ever get to a point in time where you could kind of get stuck, at least grinding enemies serves a purpose. Not in Sekiro. Sekiro, you're fighting enemies so that you can get more money to get like a couple items out of the shop that it didn't really, I don't know. The game itself felt a bit more arcadey rather than RPG. And I think that that's what wasn't really appealing to me. And not to mention the combat itself was just boring as all hell. You literally just attack the enemy to try and break their poise. And then they'll attack you and you gotta either block their attacks or dodge an unblockable attack. Rinse and repeat for like 10 whole minutes until you break through their poise, and then you damage their health a little bit, and then you gotta repeat it. Not fun. I didn't like this game, okay? Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. It's probably the best Star Wars game we've gotten for a long time. Now that said, I've seen countless people talking about how glitchy and shitty this game is, and I think that that's actually the console release. Generally speaking, it seems like the PlayStation and maybe even the Xbox version, but mostly the PlayStation, was just a janky mess. And while I'd agree that on PC, I did end up having my fair share of, I don't know, like jump glitches. Maybe you're trying to jump up something and he like glitches on the wall, or maybe you're trying to deflect an enemy attack and it just kind of goes straight through the enemy, stuff like that. Nothing really game breaking though. My only complaint, and I think that everybody who's played through Jedi Fallen Order could say the same thing, is that even though I loved this game, the irony is that I actually wish it didn't copy Sekiro as much, because clearly it was copying Sekiro and Dark Souls, where there was even the bonfires where you would end up rejuvenating your healing stims. There was pretty much the high level of difficulty and the fact that your character was, you know, not able to handle more than like 3 enemies at a time, even though the end game threw way too many enemies at you. But generally speaking, I had a really good time with it. The only thing is that I wish they pulled away from that try-hard Dark Souls style of combat and instead had the combat make you feel more overpowered, like the old Jedi Academy and Jedi Outcast games that I reference very, very much. I loved those games because you felt like a badass Jedi, but the games themselves were extremely difficult. Yeah, anytime you ended up fighting another Jedi, it was actually really, really intense, because you would one-shot the enemy with your lightsaber, but they could they could one-shot you as well. It was such a good experience playing those old school games that I was really hoping that Jedi Fallen Order would just do that, but be modern, you know? Not to mention the game itself is kind of a trick. Like, the first mission sets a very, very high standard that the rest of the game just says, fuck you, we're a Metroidvania. And the first mission in particular was actually more like Uncharted. It was really, really good and really set a high standard for the rest of the game. Not to say that the rest of the game was bad or anything like that, it just could have been better. Boneworks. And fuck everyone putting Sekiro at the top of their list. Resident Evil 2 was the best game, in my opinion, of 2019. I loved this game. Oh my god, I had a good time with this game. Like, it was so fun. I still have on my bucket list playing through the campaign with the second character, Claire, because I never did it yet. We've actually also got an announcement that they are doing the same treatment that they did with Resident Evil 2, but with Resident Evil 3. So we're getting that next year as well in 2020, and I am so extremely excited for that because I loved Resident Evil 2, man. Resident Evil 3, I don't really know dick about. The only thing that I know is Nemesis is in that, and that's gonna be scary as hell because Mr. X was already freaky. But Resident Evil 2 just did such a good job being you know, a very scary and very difficult experience, but more so the challenge wasn't on the player and the lack of controls. Like, the fact that it was a full-on remake gave us so much more control over our character and everything like that, and it was a great game. And that's gonna do it for me, gamers. Thanks so much for watching. There are a couple other games that I probably could have put on the list, but most of all, I was considering the games that I'd played. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I will do a top games of the decade because, you know, why the fuck not? There's so many games that ended up actually coming out. Now, if I was just talking about the games that I played in 2019, maybe this list would end up being a little bit different. But for now, you know, I just wanted to talk about the games that I did play that were actually released in 2019, and I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. Smash like, sub for more. Have yourselves a great day. Buy the merch as well. We got the new shirts in, man. I finally got mine. It took so darn long. But thanks for watching, gamers. Really appreciate it. Love you all to death. Sign on and stay epic. Here's to 2020.